I can't believe you. My pregnant wife scoffed when I questioned her gym obsession. My friend said I was overthinking. Until the truth came out, and her lover left. OP's wife, 30F, has always maintained a fit lifestyle but became increasingly dedicated to working out over the past year and a half. She rejoined a gym she had previously left due to her busy schedule, and over time, it began to dominate her routine, taking up both weekend days and nearly all her free time before and after work on weekdays. The gym became her go-to coping mechanism for stress, arguments, and any personal crisis. If she missed a session, her mood would noticeably worsen, which OP likens to withdrawal symptoms. Now 4 months pregnant, OP is growing concerned about the intensity of her workouts and also feels her absence deeply, as nearly all her time revolves around the gym. Working out together isn't an option because she considers the gym her personal space, and she refuses to switch to OP's gym. It seems to have become an escape from real-life issues rather than a solution to them, and even friends and family have started commenting on how much time she spends there. Update. It turns out that OP's wife was having an affair. She admitted to feeling guilty but not enough to prevent her from sleeping with a man from the gym fairly quickly. She's unsure if she loves him or just doesn't want to say. To make matters worse, there's now uncertainty about the paternity of her unborn child. While she initially claimed she would get a paternity test, she later decided against it. Instead, she and her gym partner have decided to move in together. OP reflects on how she has never seemed capable of being alone, noting that they had been together since she was 20 and suspecting she has a codependent nature. Meanwhile, her new partner doesn't seem to mind whether the baby is his or not. He's happy to play house with OP's wife. However, in a twist, the gym partner does want a paternity test after all. When the results come back, OP discovers that he is indeed the biological father. Final update. OP is now struggling with his emotions. He went from being excited about fatherhood to doubting he'd even have a role, only to now face the reality that he will be raising a child in the chaotic situation his wife created. A confrontation occurs when OP's wife brings her gym partner to OP's house to collect her belongings. OP warns the man to leave, threatening to hit him if he doesn't. After a private conversation with his wife upstairs, where she insists she's madly in love with the gym partner, OP returns to find the man still standing there. True to his word, OP punches him. As of the latest update, OP and his wife remain legally married, though she is fully committed to her new life with the gym partner. Update. OP's wife, or soon-to-be ex-wife, is now 26 weeks pregnant. He and his wife have agreed that he will be in the delivery room when the baby is born, while the gym guy will not be present, something that gym guy isn't happy about. OP is in the process of selling their marital home and splitting the proceeds, but at least he gets to keep their dog. Meanwhile, OP's wife's sister has confided in him that she is already complaining about gym guy, calling him selfish and saying he spends too much time away from home. OP takes some satisfaction in knowing she isn't exactly happy with the life she chose. Update. OP reassures everyone that he is alive and not in crisis, as some people had reached out of concern for his well-being. In fact, he feels better now than he has since everything fell apart. After his story gained traction on TikTok and YouTube, the overwhelming amount of attention forced him to take a step back. He still has over 100 unread messages and, at this point, doesn't feel like talking about his wife and her affair partner anymore. Now, with less than 10 weeks until the baby arrives, OP is feeling unprepared. The chaos of the past months has been a huge distraction. However, he has started working on a nursery. So far, the floor is finished, and the walls are painted. His wife was surprisingly impressed with the colors and furniture he chose. While they aren't legally divorced yet, OP has started referring to her as his ex-wife because it makes things feel a little easier. He also finally packed up her belongings. At first, he resisted doing it, but eventually decided it was better to clear her stuff out rather than keep seeing it around. She came alone to pick up some of the boxes, and for once, there was no arguing. As OP loaded them into her car, she teared up and admitted she had made a mistake. He agreed but told her there was no point in talking about it anymore. She had ruined their marriage, and now she had gym guy. She responded, "I know, but it's not the same." OP reminded her that nothing had been the same since the moment she decided to cheat. She then mentioned that gym guy would let OP be in the delivery room when their child is born. OP didn't argue, but the wording infuriated him. The idea that another man had any say in whether he could witness his own child's birth was beyond frustrating. Still, OP is willing to accept whatever allows him to be there for his baby. His wife tried to be sweet, insisting that she wants and needs him there. OP knows he struggles to maintain his indifference when she acts like that, so he's trying to stay emotionally detached. She even invited him to see the nursery set up at gym guy's house, but OP isn't sure he can stomach walking into another man's home to look at the space prepared for his own child. Despite everything, OP found himself asking if she was truly safe living there. The thought had been nagging at him. As much as he resents her, he doesn't want to learn that she's being mistreated, especially since his child will be living in that household. He hasn't told her anything her sister shared, but he has a feeling the relationship won't last. Still, the idea of his newborn going home to Jim Guy's house is almost unbearable. His wife reassured him that she's fine, that Jim Guy genuinely loves her, is great with kids, and has accepted that her pregnancy is part of the deal. She insists it isn't strange because she wasn't pregnant when their affair started. OP asked the question that's been on his mind for so long: why did she do it? Why did she allow this to happen in the first place? Her response was a vague, "I don't know." When he pushed, she shut down, saying she didn't want to talk about it and leaving soon after, just like she always does when things get uncomfortable. Overall, OP is doing okay. He isn't drowning his sorrows in alcohol every night anymore, though occasionally, sure. He's adjusting to his new normal, though everything is about to change again soon. Additional info. There is a draft of a custody plan now, but the court won't approve anything until after the baby is born. Right now she's in agreement, but there's plenty of time for her to change her mind, or for him to convince her to change her mind. She plans to breastfeed, but with agreement that she'll pump and the baby can drink from a bottle when not with mom. Everything I've read says a baby ideally needs to spend time with each parent frequently, without gaps that are too long in between, and it's best if each parent is feeding, changing, bathing, etc. during their time. At this time she's in agreement with all of this. I can say that she's not said or done anything to indicate she wants to restrict my time with the baby, other than the whole delivery room thing. She seems to want me to be involved in that respect. I hope she sticks to her word. If not, I will be fighting it through legal means. Update. I'm officially a dad. My baby girl was born yesterday at 11:57 p.m., 2 weeks early. Yesterday morning, my ex started having pains on and off, as she had before. Her partner left for work, and since she works from home on Mondays, she was alone. Around 8:30 a.m., she told me she was having contractions 17 minutes apart. This had happened before but had stopped by evening, so I told her to keep me updated while I was at work. Later, she said they were down to 15 minutes apart and that she was experiencing other signs that labor might actually be starting. I asked if she needed someone with her, and to my surprise, she said she wanted me there. I hadn't even been offering myself, just asking in general. She sounded scared, and I didn't ask why she wasn't calling him instead. I left work and went over to his house. Calling the situation uncomfortable is an understatement, but at that moment, there were more important things happening. He wasn't home, and she hadn't even reached out to him, she just wanted it to be the two of us. In her words, he had never seen her pee or shit herself, but since I had already been through all that with her, she felt more comfortable having me there. I did my best to be supportive and put everything else, her affair, our failed marriage, aside for the time being. I wasn't sure exactly what she needed from me, but I think she just didn't want to go through it alone. She spent most of the time stretching, following some kind of yoga labor routine, and bouncing on an exercise ball. Meanwhile, I mostly sat there, twiddling my thumbs and occasionally glancing around at his stuff. I kept timing the contractions, and they were consistent, gradually getting closer together. At that point, I was pretty sure this was really happening. It still wasn't time to go to the hospital yet, but it was getting close to when her partner would be home. I was already thinking about how I'd handle that situation when she suddenly called me into the bathroom to ask if I thought her water had broken. It wasn't like the dramatic gush you see in movies, but it definitely seemed like things were progressing. So he got home and I was there. He came into the house and the first thing he asked is, "What are you doing here?" I think he thought something else was going on. "No, you just left and went to work and left her alone when she was scared." He said he was home and he'd be with her until it was time to go to the hospital. He put his hand on my shoulder and said something like, "Thanks, bud, I got it from here and we'll call you when we're on the way to the hospital." He called me bud. I told him I wasn't his fucking buddy and to fuck off. I could tell she wanted me to leave. I'm not sure she really wanted me to leave so much as she was in labor and the tension between the two of us wasn't what she needed and I knew that. It was his house, so what was I supposed to do? I left and prayed they'd actually call me instead of letting me know the next day that my kid had been born. She texted me a few hours later to say the doctor told her to go to the hospital. At that point I still didn't know if I was going to be waiting outside or what he'd decide was best for his apparent wife and child. I was allowed to be in the room. I didn't force my way in there. She said she wanted me to be there. He was there too. By far the single most awkward experience of my life, and the only reason I was able to excuse it was because she told me she wanted me there and I didn't want to miss the chance to be there when my kid was born and to hold my kid before he did. I can't imagine what the doctors and nurses were thinking. Fucking humiliating. Then the guy tried to police what I could see. I put the baby in there. He's fucking watching and it's like this is still my wife and that's my baby. I chose to stay dignified and I ignored him the entire time. I was there to do whatever she told me to do and my focus wasn't on him, but in any other setting I don't think I would have been able to hold back. Update. The baby practically flew out, at least, according to the nurses. And I trust labor and delivery nurses to know what they're talking about. Because she was born so quickly, my ex experienced severe tearing. The baby is tiny, barely 6 pounds and just 18 inches long, but thankfully, she's perfectly healthy. I went home briefly to rest, though I barely managed to relax at all. When I returned today, he was there, as expected. Surprisingly, he said he'd give us some time alone with the baby. I'm not sure if my ex had asked him to do that when I arrived, but I didn't question it. A few hours later, he came back with food for all of us. I had a fleeting thought about whether mine might be poisoned, but I kept things civil. He's still around though, and I'm wondering how long he plans to stick around. No matter what, I have to be careful not to do anything that could give my ex a reason to make it harder for me to see my daughter. I can't let them push me away from her. I won't be sharing her name publicly, but I can confirm it's the one my ex and I chose years ago when we talked about having a daughter. He had no say in it and hasn't commented on it at all. But watching him hold my daughter? That was brutal. Eventually, I had to leave because sitting there, pretending we were some bizarre version of Three's Company, was just too much. I know I'll have my time with her when he's not around. He's already posting pictures of them together on social media. I have no idea how I'm going to navigate this, but I will figure it out. No matter how much it hurts, I refuse to let him or their relationship get in the way of me being a father to my daughter. I finally understand what people mean when they say they'd do anything for their kids. And if that means playing nice with him, then so be it. Relevant/additional comments from OOP. This isn't about wanting her back, I just can't seem to stop caring. Knowing she was carrying my child made it nearly impossible to cut ties, even though I wanted to. I still feel this instinct to protect or help her, though I hope that now, with the baby here, separating my feelings for them will get easier. Honestly, I'm considering doing something reckless. She's getting discharged early tomorrow morning, and I hate the idea of her and the baby going home with him. I'm thinking about asking her to come back to our house instead. I know it's a terrible idea, it would just set us up for disaster. It's not about wanting to be with her again. I just can't handle my newborn daughter going home to another man's house. And if I'm being honest, this isn't even about her or the baby. It's about me. That said, I know this wouldn't be a long-term solution. We wouldn't stay married forever, we'd eventually separate, start new relationships, move on. And I can't trust her again, not after everything. Maybe it's actually better for our daughter that we start off in separate homes from the beginning, so she never has to experience the pain of a family splitting apart later. But I still don't know how I'm going to handle watching my baby leave the hospital with him. I'm honestly scared I'll lose control when that moment comes. The discharge. I gave in. I asked her to come home with me. I didn't frame it as, I want you to come home. Instead, I told her, if you don't want to go home with him, you don't have to. You can come back to our house if you want. She said she can't. Why? Because he's done so much for her. He moved her into his house. He set up a nursery. He loves her. And according to her, I don't love her anymore, not after what she did. But he does. He accepts her and the baby. She told me she doesn't believe she'll ever find someone else who will love both her and our child the way he does, so she can't risk losing him. I told her she doesn't owe him anything. Just because he let her move in and put together a nursery doesn't mean she's indebted to him, especially when it comes to something this important. Her response? I want to, but I just can't. I'm sorry. I left. I couldn't stand there and watch them get into his car and drive my daughter to his house. Instead, she threw me a bone, you can come over and see her tomorrow. Great. I know this is her doing. She made these choices. But somehow, I'm the one feeling like I failed. Maybe if I hadn't shut her out so completely, she wouldn't have turned to him. Maybe this never would have happened. OOP on the AP posting baby photos online. I told him he's not allowed to post pictures of my daughter online. His excuse? He was just sharing a few pictures to show how proud and happy he was of my wife. According to him, that wasn't weird. I told him he could post her all he wanted, I didn't care. But the baby? Absolutely not. He didn't seem to take me seriously, so I laid it out clearly, I know you wish you'd won this one, but you didn't. She's my daughter, not yours. If you actually mean all this respecting me as her father talk, you'll respect my boundary. He said he understood. We'll see. Update. A lot of people have been asking for an update, but I've been swamped. Between caring for the baby and dealing with an unrelated string of frustrating problems, it's been a rough week. Ever read Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day? That's been my entire week, except I won't get into all of it. Let's just say I can't even stay at my own house right now because there's a giant hole in the wall. I've been dealing with insurance and contractors all day, and to top it off, they hit a water pipe. I'm still on paternity leave and spending as much time as possible with my daughter. We have a set schedule for when she stays with me, so I've been going over to his house less. That said, I do stop by sometimes when my wife needs help, whether it's so she can shower, nap, or just take a break. I'll take any opportunity to be with my baby and bond with her. Breastfeeding hasn't been going well, she's struggling to produce enough milk, and I know it's been really upsetting for her. At least she has help when the baby is with her, supposedly he gets up at night and helps out. Meanwhile, I'm handling everything solo. It hasn't been easy, but I think I'm starting to get the hang of it. Her breaking point. The other day, she called me in distress and asked me to come over. She said she was on the verge of a breakdown. I've heard her say this many times before, usually, it was work-related, back when she was cheating on me without my knowledge. When I got there, she was in full meltdown mode, crying, saying she couldn't handle being a mom, couldn't handle life, couldn't function. This time, she couldn't escape to the gym like she used to, she's still not cleared for exercise. She refuses to talk to anyone or seek professional help. Some days, she seems okay. Others, not so much. The truth is, she's always been easily overwhelmed. Everything just gets to her. Sometimes we have, dare I say, a good time together. The most she can really go as far as physical activity right now is walk. We took the baby in her longest walk yet and walked from his house to my house. Everything was fine in the walk. She was in a good mood. We were joking around. Then she turned really sad after being at my house/our former shared house after a little while. She finally admitted that this isn't how it's supposed to be, raising our daughter between two homes. She said my home is our daughter's real home and she's only supposed to have one home. Then she started sobbing about not having a home anymore. My house isn't her home and her boyfriend Gumbro's house isn't her home and she's essentially homeless and doesn't belong anywhere. She admitted she fucked up really badly and she doesn't want to share custody or to only see her daughter half the time. She just wants to come home, but she loves him and she thinks he loves her and our daughter and she doesn't want to hurt him after he's done all this for her. I said, so what? What she wants for her kid should be more important than his feelings. If he can't get over the fact that the married, pregnant woman who he was sleeping with wants her kid to grow up in a single home with her actual father, he can fuck off. He can fuck off anyway. If she can't tell him and wants me to tell him, I will. She doesn't think she can tell him. I told her this is her biggest issue, communication and honesty. Just tell people the truth and stop being a pussy about ever telling anyone the truth about how you really feel. Tolerating, but never liking him. Lately, I've been tolerating him. I still don't like him, but I put up with him. That doesn't mean we're hanging out, because that's never happening. As much as it pains me to admit, I think he's actually in this for the long haul. That doesn't change the fact that he was sleeping with my wife, and it definitely doesn't excuse him. He's gone back to being overly nice to me, constantly suggesting we should hang out, trying to be friends. He's just so damn happy all the time. It's unsettling, but maybe that's just who he is. And maybe that's what she sees in him. I'll never be that kind of person, and I don't want to be. A heated discussion. She and I had what started as a discussion but quickly escalated into an argument, before shifting back into a civil conversation. It was basically a rundown of everything we dislike about each other and our relationship. By the end, we at least managed to express what we need from one another. She admitted she's too overwhelmed to make any changes right now. Just thinking about change gives her too much anxiety. So, I don't know. We're stuck at a standstill. And with everything going on with my house, I've just been extra stressed, not exactly the easiest person to deal with right now. Update. This month has been one of the strangest I've ever gone through. The repairs on my house are finally done, and I'm grateful to be back home. I could only handle a few nights under my parents' roof. I slept with someone else. We went on a date, but honestly, it felt like we both just wanted to sleep together as a way of proving we'd moved on from our exes. She's actually the ex-wife of a friend of mine, though she and I have become much closer than I ever was with her former husband. A lot of people have suggested we start dating since we get along so well and seem like a great match on the surface. But it just felt too weird for both of us. She's beautiful, outgoing, fun, and has been incredibly supportive throughout everything, but I can't see her as anything more than a friend. I had been purposely avoiding sleeping with anyone since the last time I was with my wife, which feels like a lifetime ago. At first, I simply wasn't interested in other women. Then, it became my way of feeling morally superior to her, holding out until after the divorce to prove to myself that I wasn't like her, that I never cheated. But looking back, it was a pretty pointless and childish mindset. Just a way to make myself feel better. And honestly, I don't even see it as cheating. Our marriage is already over. Ironically, just hours after this happened, my wife texted me saying she wanted to come home. It was like she had some kind of sixth sense. She told me she was ready and asked if I'd help her. When I called her, I told her I didn't want her to come back or restart our relationship. She doesn't get to just decide that. She quickly backpedaled, saying, "Oh, I know, I just meant move back in." I told her I didn't believe her. It felt like another manipulation. She insisted she was serious, saying our last conversation had gone well and she thought we were finally in a place where we could work on things. Until then, she said, she could live in a separate room. She kept saying she wanted our daughter to be raised in one home. I felt conflicted, but in the end, I want my daughter to live with me full-time, and I don't want another man raising her. So I took the bait. Today, I went to his house to help her move, expecting that she might have changed her mind or never actually intended to leave. Sure enough, when I arrived, they were arguing. The baby was crying, she was crying, running around stuffing things into bags, and he was following her, begging her to stay, saying he'd do anything to make her reconsider. He even accused me of putting the idea in her head. Maybe I did, I don't know, and I don't care. It was obvious she had just blindsided him with the news right before I arrived. She kept repeating that she wanted her child to grow up in one home, that his place was never truly their home, and that she was sorry for doing this after everything he'd done for her, but she had to give our daughter stability, with her real father. We got back over to my house and she's obviously an emotional mess. I have no room prepared for her. Not 15 minutes later he shows up at the front door. She didn't want to talk to him. He wouldn't give up and eventually he was there on the front porch loudly saying things like, "That's not what you were saying when you were blowing me last night." So at that point, after I'm sure our neighbors had been enjoying this embarrassing scene long enough, I told him if he didn't leave I'd call the cops. I went out there and tried to calm him down. I mean, I had to sympathize with him. She runs away, that's what she does. I may have said a few other things in my own favor and to make him realize he doesn't want to be involved in this mess that is my wife. I don't think he'll give up so easily. It sounds terrible, but once she was at my house I sort of found myself wishing she'd leave with him. I know I'd had wanted her to come home, and I tell myself it was mostly due to the baby, but now I'm wondering what the hell I've gotten myself into. She said, "I didn't really blow him last night. I haven't done anything with him since she was born. I've only been thinking about you." I told her, "Yeah right, you expect me to believe it? Even if it's true, what on earth makes you think I'd ever believe anything that you say?" Then out of spite I told her I slept with somebody else. I know I only told her to hurt her, and I feel bad about it now. She immediately demanded to know who. I told her it wasn't her business. She claims it is her business because we're still married. Nope, I'm not sharing. So, now we're awkwardly existing. I don't have much faith that she's going to stay here. I think she'll be back at his place within the week. I've told her that he's not allowed over here. He has no business being here. And if we're raising our daughter in the same house, together, then she can't just run off to his house to be with him whenever she feels like it. It won't work that way. She says she knows, and she wants me to want to be with her again and she'll prove to me she can be a good partner. She tried to kiss me and I rejected her. She's upset. She's taking a nap now. I feel like I've dug myself into a very deep hole now. Update. I don't really have any new updates, but I'm making this post because my last one has blown up, and it's become too difficult to keep up with all the responses. When I get a notification that someone has replied to my post or comment, clicking on it should take me straight to their response, but it doesn't. Instead, I have to scroll through hundreds of comments to find the one I want to reply to, and I simply don't have time to sift through 800 comments. There are also comments I don't respond to by choice. I know many people think I'm a doormat who needs to grow a spine. What can I say? If you were in my position, maybe you'd see how complicated this really is. I was planning to divorce her. The papers are ready. I'll admit I've hesitated to have her served, and I can't fully explain why. My lawyer wanted to file them back on July 29th, but I told him I needed more time. Honestly, I'm a little embarrassed by my reluctance. But this is my life, and it's easy for outsiders to call for divorce and suggest things that aren't realistic, like getting sole custody of my daughter. If I had to take on full custody, I absolutely would. But my wife isn't insane. I know many of you have a terrible impression of her, and I'm partly responsible for that. I've shared the truth about her actions, and those actions have shaped her image. That's all you know about her, but there are good things about her too. For a long time, I didn't want to acknowledge or even remember them. Yes, she's done awful, selfish, and deeply hurtful things. She's emotionally driven, highly anxious, and often makes decisions based on impulse. I won't pretend it isn't exhausting and frustrating, because it is, most of the time. But she's not crazy. She isn't an immediate threat to our child's safety, and she hasn't done anything that would make a court grant me full custody. Do I think she's in the best possible place to raise a whole human being? No. I mean, either am I, but she has a lot of work to do and I know that. We weren't planning to have a baby when she got pregnant. I would not have purposely conceived a baby at that time because she was sort of already a mess prior to finding out she was pregnant. But there's a difference between that and being legitimately unstable to the point of not being able to tend to the basic needs of her child. She's doing that. She actually seems less of a mess and less anxious than she was a year ago this time, when she was having her weekly meltdowns. She co-owns our home with me. Yes, I've always been the one paying the mortgage, but that doesn't really matter in the eyes of the court since both of our names are on the deed. I can't just force her out. We had planned to sell the house and split the profits, which honestly seemed like the simplest and fastest solution. Houses are selling quickly in our area, and we'd walk away with a decent amount. It stings to have to split the money, but that wasn't a battle I felt was worth fighting. At the end of the day, I believe it's best for my child to have her mother in her life and to build a bond with her, no matter where she lives or what our relationship looks like. My child's well-being also depends on her mother being stable and safe, and that means she needs a place to live. I won't lie, I've actually enjoyed some of the moments of normalcy we've had. Call it rug sweeping if you want, but I'm just exhausted. Tired of being angry. Tired of being sad. Tired of all the drama. So, having a few days where life feels simple again, where we just sit around doing ordinary things together without constantly thinking about divorce, custody, or the future, feels like a relief. Like I can finally catch my breath. If that makes me spineless for appreciating moments that I once dreamed we'd share as parents, then so be it. That doesn't mean I don't get annoyed. I had gotten used to living on my own, and I actually liked it, at least, I thought I did. Sometimes, having her back in the house feels like she's invading my space. But I'm handling it as best I can. There are still things I love about her. There are also things I hate about her now. I hate the choices she made. I guess I love the person she used to be. And sometimes, when I catch glimpses of that version of her, I miss her. I won't deny it, I do miss the person I fell in love with. We've been together since I was 22 and she was 20. We moved in after only a few months. Almost all of our adult lives have been intertwined. We've lived in crappy apartments, moved across the country, bought and sold homes, traveled together, survived job losses, car accidents, health scares, and even the terrible DIY haircuts we gave each other during COVID. We've had terrible fights and passionate make-up sex, gone through pregnancy scares, and basically grown up together. Well, I grew up. She still struggles with that. We used to be best friends, inseparable. In some ways, she still has a hold on me. And what's the point in denying it?